Like, I've been blessed with, like we talked about throughout this pod today, like with having people that have helped me in my life, and like without those people, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I just try to do the same thing, and I think that's something that, like, we should all do in this world, and
I'm feeling good. At least feeling great. Yeah. All right, let's start back in the day. Let's start at Carver though. Let's start at when you were a kid, like growing up. Omar, Marty, like, talk to me about that dynamic and like, how did you guys meet? Like, how did you guys become friends? Like, where did that start? Like, were you guys always cool? How was that?
yeah, man, it was different. Like, so I started off. I went to Coconut Grove Elementary 1st, from kindergarten to second grade, and then in third grade I went to Sunset Elementary, which is honestly one of the biggest things that ever happened to me. My mom was a teacher there. I entered the French program, which is wild to think about now that I actually studied French. So we'll get into that too. But yeah, so in third grade, it was Omar and Mario already knew each other from second grade, and I pulled up, and we just became a little crew since then, and we're still rocking.
Damn, bro. Did you guys always like? Did you always know? Because you know how they talk about like when you're in school, like, they're just your friends in school. Like, you're probably not gonna see them ever again. Like, they're just your friends, but you're not gonna. Did you know, like, since the day you met them, like, oh, these are gonna be my boys for the rest of my life?
No, those are my guys.
Really?
From day one. We love sports. We love sneakers. I remember that's how I got into sneakers was with them. I remember when the Dion's would drop, we'd always talk about them, or whatever shoe was coming out. We were just into that then, and it was pretty cool. We started sleeping over each other's houses like in the third grade.
Damn,
Bro.
bro.
We were super young, and our families got along, and it was just one of those friendships that were amazing. I remember Omar's mom used to travel in December for a little bit, and Omar would always stay with me in the house. But it would always get to that point where it was almost like it was too many days together, So we start off 3 days perfect, and like the next three, it was always a fight. It would always end in a fight, And it's funny till this day. Obviously, he's my brother, he's my best friend. And then we're the same way now,
Still.
We can hang out for like a day or two together, and then it's like we need the break. And I think it's my fault because I'm the more intense one. But it was just super cool how that kind of started. And so we started off at Sunset Elementary, and like I said, I started taking French, which is crazy to think about. And then we went to Carver Middle School together. And then in 8th grade, it was one of those decisions where we were trying to figure out where we wanted to go to high school. And I remember Coral Reef was on the table, Coral Gables was on the table. And then I remember my mom specifically was like, hey, not that I was a bad kid. I wasn't a bad kid. But, the French teachers were strict. So I would get in trouble for my behavior in the French classes. And so the story goes that in 8th grade, Mario and I had every single class together.
That's not good.
It wasn't good.
That's not good. That's not good at all.
So, I was the guy that was, always laughing and, easy to laugh, right? And Mario would make me laugh, and I'll get in trouble in class, and it was just always a revolving door with that. But it's funny, our 8th grade math teacher used to actually, he would kick us out of class if we weren't there at 8:55 when class really started at 9 o'clock. So we always said, this is unfair. So a lot of times he would just, we would get in trouble, he'd kick us out, and it would just be me, Omar, and Mario hanging out for a whole period and then go back. But he used to call us the Three Musketeers.
Wow.
So the Three Musketeers, and then so for high school, my mom was like, "Hey, if you don't clean it up, you're gonna go to private school, And I was like, man, I want to go to Gables, I want to go to Coral Reef or whatnot. And then it's funny, I went to one summer, one of the guys I grew up with in the summers, David Torres, he was going to Columbus, and I went to a freshman football game, and I went on campus and I just saw. I was like, man, this is pretty cool. It's like a huge locker room, It was obviously all boys school, and everyone's just hanging out, and I like the vibe, So I came back and I said, Mom, I'll go to Columbus. And then I think Mario's parents at the time were like, all right, you're gonna go to Columbus. That was kind of happening on the side too. And then Omar was like, well, you guys are going to Columbus, I'm gonna go to Columbus too. And then that's kind of how we ended up at Columbus.
Wow, bro, that's insane that all three of you were like, nah, bro, all right, that's the move. That's where we're going. Can you guys are all creatives, right? You all are very like creative. Obviously, you guys all have your careers, but then you're an athlete, Marty obviously rapping, and Omar with the cars. Like, was that art like something that was like instilled at a very young age? Is that maybe what drew you guys together too? Was like that part of it?
Yeah, we always have a love for music. Omar was always a car guy. Since we were in high school, he was just always in the cars, and we weren't really big car guys. Even to this day, I'm not like that's not my thing.
Yeah.
But Omar was he just always knew. I remember him having a Honda Accord in high school, but it was like, the lights were just perfect. The car was always washed. Like his rims were always clean, and he was just always about that. And then Marty, it's funny, since we were, third grade, he could rap any song, that he'd hear. I remember him, Tupac, Biggie, whatever it was, he would just, spit all the lyrics, and you look at him like, dude, how can you remember this stuff? And to this day, they still make fun of me. They call me lyrics.com because I'm horrible with lyrics. I always say I'm the beat guy. But yeah, Mario just always had a talent for music, and he played the piano growing up. So
Really?
that was something behind the scenes that we kind of always saw. And then I remember when in 2009, I think it was, when he started doing the music stuff, and it was cool to see where he could, people underestimate how hard it is to jump on a track and be on beat and really do what he's doing right now. So I mean, I'm so proud of him. His hustle, man, how far he's come, and doing shows and doing solo albums now, and just the stuff he's been putting out now, it's been amazing. So I'm glad to been part of the journey and to see all the success he's having.
There's only the beginning, it feels like, right? Like,
nah, he's just getting started, and it's so cool to see doing shows everywhere. Looking forward to now. He's gonna be doing a show at Soho House, and just he's starting to do a lot of really, really cool things, and I'm just glad to see.
Yeah, bro, it's amazing to watch. Like, I mean, we all have like close friends, but like to see what you guys have like built over time, like people look up to that, man. Like that's what people look for, is like that type of community, bro. It's sick to watch, bro. Like you guys support each other every day. Like you see it even on social media, in person. Like it's always love, bro. So it's dope. How was it when you got into high school, man? Because it's Columbus, right? It's different than what you were used to maybe in public school, like, and me going to public school and then coming here to a private school, like it was always like, I don't know, there's always a stigma about private school. Did you have that before coming into Columbus at all?
For sure. For me, like, I didn't even know Columbus was a good sports school. I had no idea. I liked the vibes that I saw there, and I was like, yeah, I'll go to the school. So I remember being in 8th grade, and I was on international playing at the boys club, and one of my teammates, Ozzy Delgado, I'll never forget, he was like, hey, you're going to Columbus. He's like, you have to play web ball, and you have to do this and that. And I'm like, man, luckily for me growing up, my grandparents had like a little studio apartment on the beach where that saved my life. That was our safe haven, where every weekend we'd go there. All summers we'd go. And then it kind of ties into our whole little crew. My boys, Roy and Ryan, two brothers. One's a GC. He's doing awesome. The other one's a financial guy, Roy. And that's where I met them. And it's cool now where we're all like one big group together. But yeah, so I grew up going to the beach. So when they said web ball in the summer and all this stuff, like, dude, I spent my summers in the beach hanging out. And so I go to web ball, and obviously everybody, they came from different backgrounds or whatnot, and we go to web ball. And I'll never forget that year. I think there were 6 teams for web ball. So team 1 was varsity, team 2 was kind of like a JV varsity mix, and then there's team 3 that was like JV and a couple freshmen sprinkled in there, I believe. And then there was teams 4, 5, and 6 were all freshman teams. So I'm coming out there, and naturally I was always quiet and just. I loved baseball, but I never took it too seriously. So, I get there my freshman year in the summer, and everyone's just like, who's this kid? We've never seen this guy before. And I remember that summer, it's a pretty crazy story where I got called up to play in a game with Team 2. I've never even played on 90 feet bases. So, I'm in public school getting out at 3:45, and the game's at 3 o'clock. So I'll never forget, my grandfather picked me up early from school, and it was at Sunset High School. And there was a guy, Chino, shout out to Chino from Sunset, and he threw gas. So I'm in 8th grade essentially, and I'm out there, and they put me to lead off playing center field. So on team 3, so now I get there, and everyone's like, "Who's this kid? We never heard of this guy. Like, where'd this guy come from?" Leading off, I'll never forget. I had never seen fastballs that fast in my life. I struck out 3 times. It was incredible. But I'll never forget, that was one of the days that really changed my life. Alex Meneses, who was a teammate of mine in Columbus, awesome dude. That we're still friends to this day. He was there, and he was so positive, and he was just so encouraging. And then, Willie Alvarez was pitching that day. Willie was signed to go to Louisville. So after the game, we were family friends, and I didn't even know it. So after the game, I see my mom talking to a lady, and I'm like, Mom, like, I've never seen you talking to anyone. Using the games, like, I was always the one that's like, hey, don't talk to me during the games, and don't get involved with everyone talking and all that. Yeah. So I see my mom talking to this lady. I'm like, who's that? She's like, oh, this is Donnie Alvarez. Our families are friends or whatnot, and Willie and this and that. And I was like, wow, this is incredible. So Willie ended up pitching that day. He didn't have a good game, but he was super encouraging to me. He was like, hey kid, you're gonna be fine, and he was just a positive light. So when I get to Columbus my freshman year, Willie's a senior. I didn't know anyone in school, so I'd walk around campus, and Willie be like, he would tell the older guys like, oh no, look, hey, this is my family right here, hey, whatnot. And then, unfortunately in January of his senior year, he passed away in a car accident.
Wow, bro.
So for me, that was one of those things that, like, I always think about, like, how nice he was and all that. And then it's funny because his brother Mikey's, one of our best friends, part of our crew too. So it was just funny how, like, the world works and all these things connect and whatnot. But, I always carry that Willie spirit in me of, like, how awesome he was, how nice he was and all that. And then, in Columbus, obviously it's a Catholic school, and, Willie set the tone for us as a senior where the baseball players would go to chapel before every lunch, right? So
Wow.
you just go and, if you're religious, you'd pray. If you want to meditate, or just some, a nice little quiet time, just to, whatever faith you had was to take that time. And that's one of the things that, like, I continued when I was there. And it was one of the things that, like, to this day I think about all the time, that impact that Willie had. And it goes back to that summer of,
Wow,
of,
man.
of Columbus.
It's crazy how it all ties in, bro. There's a reason for everything. And you mentioned something that I wanted to get into a little bit, was your grandfather and your grandparents. Like, you talk about, I've heard every damn podcast you've ever done, bro. So I know a lot of these stories, but I want to hear them from you because I'm selfish and I want to hear it on my podcast. But what kind of impact was your grandfather? What kind of impact did it have watching him wake up every day, and him being from obviously Cuban descent or born in Cuba? So, like, what kind of impact did you have from him, watching him do that every single day? Like, what did that do for you?
No, I saw him. He'd wake up at 5 a.m, go work to provide for the family. So, growing up, it was pretty cool. We grew up in a duplex where it was my mom on one side with my sister, and then on the other side it was my uncle and my grandparents. So it was awesome. We were together, all the time, and ate dinner together. They did everything together. So my grandfather was just such a simple man. He didn't need much. He just wanted everybody to be happy, and I saw that. He literally would, like, he wouldn't change his clothes. He'd go to work and he wouldn't want to go eat out either, old school Cuban.
Yeah.
And, like, I remember, like,
Come in la casa.
I'd have to tell him, like, abuelo, cámbiate, please. Like, we're going to go to dinner. Like, and, like, and he was just such a simple dude. Like, I don't care what people think. And it's something I think about a lot now where, really, like, obviously, like, I'm into a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, when we're gone, we don't take anything with us. So, but he instilled that work ethic in me. And I remember, I loved school. I loved going to school since I was a kid because I loved being around people. But whenever I missed school, whenever there wasn't school, a teacher planning there, whatnot, there's no one to take care of me, right? So I would go to work with my grandfather. And, I'm 7 years old, 8 years old, and going to work with him. And, he worked on air conditioning. He was a handyman. He did whatever he could.
Yep.
And he knew about houses, how to build things. And, he'd climb up in an attic or whatnot. And, in Spanish, he would tell me to get some tools. And I'd come back with the wrong tool. And he's yelling at me about the tool. And I'm like, dude, I don't know what's going on.
I don't even know what I'm doing, bro.
And that's what kind of, like, put the light on for me. Where, like, my grandparents came from Cuba, sacrifice, for the future of their family, which is me. And worked hard, and I saw him work hard, and I kind of saw that, and I was like, you know what, in life, if you work hard, it doesn't matter what it is you're doing, if you work hard and you do things the right way, it's gonna, things are gonna come back for you, So I saw that firsthand, and that's something that, to this day, I still do.
Yeah, you've, at least from my perspective and from everybody that's ever been around you, like, that's the same message that they get. Like, that's the same thing that everybody says, like, yo, he's a great person and he works the hardest. And do you think that ties into, were you ever, like, the fastest, the biggest, the strongest, like, when you were growing up, when you were at that age? Were you, like, just flat out better than everybody, or was it always, like, a thing that was like, I had to hustle more, I had to play harder? Was that always a thing for you?
Yeah, I think for me, like, my baseball path, I loved soccer growing up.
Yeah,
soccer was, like, my thing. But back in the days, the only soccer program there was the YMCA. So there weren't academies, there weren't fields everywhere. It was all baseball. This is the early 90s. So soccer was my first love, and I did both. And then when I was about 10 years old, I kind of had to decide, like, all right, this is a little bit too much. But I remember when I was like 8 or 9, I went to, like, an academy. I went to hardball, where I got to learn so much from so many great people. But it was too intense for me. I was like I don't want to get yelled at. I don't, like, this is just not fun right now. So I remember telling my mom, because I started off playing at South Miami Core League. I remember going back to South Miami Core League with all my friends, play games, eat chips after the games, get ice cream. Like, it was fun. It was easy fun, not as competitive. And then I was about 12 years old when I kind of, like, told my mom, like, all right, like, this league's fun. I like my friends, but, like, I need a little bit more of a challenge. I'm ready to go back to the, to the academy style baseball.
Yeah.
So I went back to academy style baseball, and then that's kind of where, like, I was like, all right. And I actually joined a team while I was 12 years old, and Sean Rodriguez was one of the guys on the team. So, Sean obviously had an 11-year career in the big leagues. He went to, Coral Park and Braddock. We played against each other growing up our whole lives. But Sean was always a guy that was like, he was a man amongst boys. He was just
Way better.
that guy. So, growing up in Miami, there's so much talent. And you're looking around and, like, I was like, yeah, I'm good. But, man, there's guys around here that are, like, really, really good. So, even at the boys club, playing at the boys club, I remember they'd have, like, the batting average up. And like, you'd go check the batting average up when I was with International. And, like, you'd see guys that were, like, animals, guys that were, like, all day in high school that, everybody played at the boys club and all that. So once I was, like, 14, I didn't make JV at Columbus. So I only made the freshman team. All right? So that's kind of where it all clicked. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to be the guy that sits here and, like, complains and says, like, oh, I should be this, I should be that. I can control this, right? I'm 14 years old. So my one of my good friends and best friends to this day, Pete Rodriguez, he used to work out in the mornings. So I kind of linked up with him, and, that's how I started working on the morning. So I'd work out before high school. And, sophomore year, I ended up making the varsity team, which is, it was something that was like, wow. But
unheard of.
It all went to, like, the work ethic, right? Like, I started working out in the mornings. And I remember, like, Mario and Omar would joke with me because, they're like, dude, you work out in the morning, you have no muscles. And I'm like, dude, they're coming. They're coming, They're coming. And then, but that was the foundation to everything till this day was that time right there.
Yeah, no, it keeps on giving. That's the gift that keeps on giving is the work ethic, bro. You haven't, it seems like no matter how much success you have, you never change, bro. Like, you're still that same kid. Is that, like, a connection with how your grandfather is, too? Because, like, it seems like nothing is too big or too small for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely for my family. They always taught me from the beginning, just, like, things come and go. That's it. But the only thing that you really keep is, like, who you are as a person. Like, not to say your reputation, but, like, yeah, like, who you are, the way people speak about you. So, that's something that always stuck with me. Like, just be the same person. And something that I always realized too, and I appreciate it from a younger age, is like, hey, you never know what people are going through, right? So, like, and I look back, in middle school and elementary school where, we probably said things to people that you're like, man, that was so, that was so ignorant of me. Or, like, I was a kid, like, making fun of, you're a kid and stuff. Yeah. And, like, you think back, it's like, hey, you don't know who's going through what or all that. So I always take that with me to this day. It's like, you can meet someone that could be having a horrible day, and just by saying hi to them and uplifting them, giving them a smile, like, you could change, their outlook on time. Especially nowadays, we see so many things going on with mental health and just different things. And, after we went through the pandemic and all that. So, I really just try to be the same guy no matter what. I want to be consistent. Like, in life, absolutely. That's my goal, is just to be consistent in everything.
The same. Talk to me about, you talk about not having pressure as a kid when you were playing, because, like, this is Miami, bro. Like, there was always pressure. Like, especially when you were kids. I feel like there was more pressure when you're a kid to play because of the way the parents are and all that. Like, you said you didn't ever really have that, like, nobody was forcing you. They told you to do it the right way. Like, how did you, like, how? I can't even understand that, because we all played here, bro. Like, it was crazy. The little kids' games were insane. Like, how did you not have that? Like, how were your grandparents and parents? Like, did they just say, like, hey, it's all right? Like, if you do good, great. If not, it's all right, whatever. Like, how was that for you?
For me, it was simple. My grandmother was a teacher. Both my grandmothers were teachers. My mom was a teacher, so, like, really education was big in our house. And, I was good at sports and whatnot, but it wasn't like, they didn't see everything that was going on, right? They didn't see me playing basketball at school and playing football and stuff, and, I'd come home and say, like, oh, I did this or that, and they're like, all right, cool, whatever. It wasn't on the internet or whatnot. So, for me, I just didn't have pressure. And it was like, oh, baseball's cool, but, like, there's more to life than baseball. And it was cool to get that message from an early age, right? Where, like, just, hey, no pressure. Get your grades and go out there and have fun. And then I kind of, like, put that pressure on myself once I got to high school, and I was like, all right, like, this is what I want to be. My goal was simple when I got to high school. It was like, how am I going to get to college, right?
Yeah.
I'm talented in baseball. Like, I can get to college by doing well in baseball. And that was kind of my thing. Being at Columbus, I saw that. I saw, Matt Barquette's going to UM. Just guys, all these guys were going to all these schools. And I said, if I can just play varsity here, I'm going to go to college somewhere.
You have to.
It's like
by default.
By default, you're going to college. So yeah. I never had that pressure. And then, I was a kid that was rollerblading and skateboarding and riding bike and building ramps and, like, doing all this stuff that,
you're still doing today.
Still doing today, yeah. So, but it was those things where, like, my family, thank God, they just let me be me. They just let me have fun and let me enjoy life. And, it's something that I really thank them for, to this day.
No, it makes all the difference in the world, because I guess when you put the pressure on yourself, it's because you wanted to, right? Like, you really had that drive to, like, hey, it's time. I want to get to college. Let me do it. Let's go. But you never had that unnecessary pressure, I guess you can say, What do you think like is the issue nowadays? Like, do you think that that's the approach that parents should take? Because I mean, you're a father and like you're raising your kids. Like, what are you trying to take from what your parents did? What did you like? What are you adding? Like, what's kind of the vibe now for you?
Yeah, you know, my kids, it's simple. You know, I want them to fall in love with something the same way I fell in love with baseball, you know?
Uh-huh.
And, you know, so we give them different options, and whatever it is, you know? And for me, honestly, like, I just think sports is great for kids to play just so that they get along with kids and, like, you know, they learn to handle their pressures and, like, learn to handle when they fail, you know? And, like, my daughters are this way now, you know? They want to be perfect. They want to play great. And when they don't do something right, they can get frustrated sometimes. You know, they're about to turn 7, and it's just teaching those life lessons. Like, hey, you're going to get better at things. So my message to them always has been like, hey, how do we get better at things? You know, it's by practicing these things. But I don't force them to practice things. So what I like to do at home, and my wife gets kind of mad sometimes, is like I like to have a little corner. Yeah, Nick, sorry about this, but I like to have a little corner where I just leave, you know, balls and the skateboards and the scooters and whatever it is, so that way they see it. And they can just, like, on their own, like, they see the scooter and they're like, oh, I want to pick up the scooter and I want to go ride the scooter. Or they see the soccer ball and like, oh, I want to go kick the soccer ball, you know? So I just keep these things out there. And, you know, for me, the same thing right now. They have homework, and they're actually at Sunset Elementary as well. And they have all these things. And I'm like, hey, you got to take care of your homework. You got to do your things. And then you can do whatever you want after. But it's been fun for them, you know, to watch them start falling in love with gymnastics and cheerleading and, you know, all these different things. And just, I'm excited to see, you know, what path they take. And, you know, not necessarily putting pressure on, like, they have to play sports. But I like the way they're, you know, learning camaraderie and these different things and stuff like that. So for me with the kids, it's been fun watching them grow and taking the things I've learned and putting in them.
That's awesome, bro. All right, let's talk about Columbus, because Columbus is, what do you call it? Scrubs Miami baseball. No, I'm playing. Obviously, everybody kind of has like this little bit of jealousy, hate when it comes to sports of Columbus. Everybody knows how amazing of a school it is and stuff like that. How did it feel when you were playing in like high school baseball here in Miami and like having that little bit, like when you walked into a school, like when you walked into Belen, you know you were gonna get booed. When you were walking into all these schools, like how was that experience for you for the first time on varsity? Let's say when you're a starter, like, as a junior or whatever. Like how was that?
Yeah, it was intense. But I think growing up and playing at the Boys and Girls Club, that kind of prepared me for Columbus, right? At that time, the Boys and Girls Club was where most of the talent was. Like, and I know, you know, there's other places, Tam Miami, Flagami, HAA. There's a lot of places.
HAA, shout out HAA, just in case.
There were a lot of places, but I mean, the Boys Club, it was like it was incredible how many guys played in the big leagues that played within that time frame or whatnot. So when I went to Columbus, it was kind of like I was like, all right, I've done this at the Boys Club. Let's do the same thing we're doing, right? Year to year. So like I said, my freshman year, my goal was simple, was to make JV. I didn't make that goal. That was fine. So sophomore year, I had a goal. I want to make varsity. So I went from freshman team to varsity. And it wasn't like, oh, I need to be a starter right now. So I started off as a defensive replacement my sophomore year. And then little by little, I'll take advantage of opportunities. And we talk about this all the time, right? You got to stay ready. So I was a sophomore, just appreciated being on varsity. Like, I couldn't wait to pick up the balls for the outfielders, you know? Like, I couldn't wait to pick up the balls as a young guy in the cage and, like, earn my stripes.
Yeah.
So, you know, once I did play, it was a ton of pressure, you know? Columbus was like... And like I said, I went to Columbus not knowing anything about baseball there. So when I get there, I figure, you know, everyone's like, oh, you're going to Columbus, a baseball, you know.
Yeah,
and I'm just like, what is going on here? You know, like,
well, what did I get myself into?
You know? I remember I played football my freshman year, and I started figuring it out like the last 3 weeks. And I was super excited because I was liking this. You know, I was always good in street ball and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't know X's and O's and all that. But then, so that kind of helped me too, like meet people and all that. So, so Columbus, like, you know, you pull up to, you know, we go to Coral Gables to play, and it was cool for me because I knew all these kids from Coral Gables. I grew up with all of them. So, I think it was a little bit different for me in Columbus because I grew up with all these kids I was playing against, right? Like Sean Rodriguez at Coral Park, and then, you know, Robert Velito, Guillermo Martinez was, you know, we played against each other since we were 12 years old. So, I always had, like, familiar faces everywhere. So, it was always cool with me. But, yeah, the pressure was intense. I remember, you know, we'd have other parents from other schools to come watch our games just to, like, report on us and, like, it was just super intense. It's stuff I look back now and I laugh and I was like, wow, that was super intense. But, you know, those moments are what like helped me, you know, get to the point that I'm at right now.
Yeah, no, bro, it's great. The scouting reports before the scouting reports, bro. Oye, tipo ese tipo no es bueno, bro. Es malísimo. El tipo no batea, no esto lo otro.
It was all day, every day, all day, every day. So I learned to deal with like. That was the first time hearing like negative stuff.
Yeah.
Because people would try to tear you down, like, oh, that center fielder, like, no, you know, my son's better because this, or like, you know, you'd hear all this stuff going around, and I was like, dude, like, we're kids, man. And, like,
isn't that crazy, bro? Jay, that's insane. That, bro, I remember it like here, bro, like walking out of the field and like parents are like, like, yeah, you had a rough day today, bro. Maybe you could play tomorrow, maybe not. I don't know. Like other parents, and you're like, what the heck is this, bro? This is crazy. And it was normal. It was normal here. It was so normal. But there's no shot that like in other places people have that same experience, bro.
Yeah, I mean, baseball's gotten intense now. It's gotten intense, but I don't think it's as intense because we come from immigrant families where, and I get it. I get the pressure, and I get why it happens, right? Like this is our way out. It's our way out of here. It's our way out of here, and that's why I always, and you've heard me say this many times, like to these kids in high school, it's like, look, yes, we all want to go to UM. I understand that, right? But just go somewhere. Go somewhere for college, and get that experience. And especially like, if you're not going to go to Miami, get out of Miami. Get out of Miami for 4 years. Go experience other things because we grew up different down here. It's a whole different place. And going to play minor league ball and being around the country and traveling and all that, it's different. So I always tell kids like, go get that perspective, go away, and then this is always going to be here for you. It's going to always be here for you. So that's always kind of my message to the kids.
Yeah. It is a special thing to be able to see others' perspectives because they always talk about like, man, I wish we could. I'm sure you hear it all the time. Like, man, how is Miami? How's that? How's all those things? And it's like watching it from their perspective is kind of interesting too, bro. Seeing a different world is crazy. When you're obviously one of the biggest athletes to ever come out of UM, but also one of the biggest UM fans. When did you really become a fan of UM? Was it always a thing, or like where was that player? Who was that guy? What was it that like really drew you in?
Yeah, I don't know. From a kid, it's funny. Like I'll see pictures of myself and like have like a UM bandana on and like a hat or a shirt and all that. So like growing up, I just always loved Miami. And then remember the Marlins didn't come until 1993, so I was 8 years old at that time. So before that, the biggest baseball in town was here. It was the Canes, right? So I used to come to Ron Frazier baseball camp when I was a kid.
Wow.
So I think that's where my love for UM started was that. And then, in the 90s, the football teams, I'm sure, watching games and all that stuff on TV and all that. So I just became, we're Miami boys. We grew up here, wanted to be a Cane.
Oh, bro. It's a special bond because, like, a lot of kids grow up and, like, dying to leave wherever they're from. And, like, we grew up dying to stay right down the block, bro, because it's a special bond that obviously everybody that's been able to play here has, and it's really cool to see that. When did you commit to Miami? Was it like your junior year? Or?
Yeah, so times were different then.
Yeah.
So
very late, right? Nowadays that means it's
too early.
late.
It's way too early. But back then, you would commit after your junior year.
Uh-huh.
So I remember, Miami was my dream. Always, no matter what. I had a good junior year in high school here. So my dream was like, I want to go to Miami. And obviously, back then we didn't get the exposure you get nowadays, right? Where like you didn't even know that LSU existed or any of the other schools because there's no internet. There wasn't anything to see this, but like Miami was everything, So actually, so I graduated high school in 2003. Miami had won the 1999 championship and the 2001 championship as well. So, I got to go attend to a lot of these games in high school. I would come to the high school. Mm-hmm. That was kind of our routine back then.
Yeah.
You come to the light for a couple innings, watch the game, get a milkshake, and then we'd walk over to Sunset Place and go to the movies and hang out. That was our spot. So, it was a dream of mine to come to Miami. So I remember after my junior year, they called day one and like, hey, we want you to be here. We want to offer you this and that. And I was like, I'm all in. Like, I don't need to take another visit. Like, I'm all in. So that was after my junior year. And I committed to Miami, and it was amazing.
Did you ever think getting drafted out of high school was a possibility? Was that like something that you were like, oh, maybe this could happen, or was it always like, no, I want to go to UM?
Zero out of high school.
No.
I honestly I knew I was a good player, but I'll just see these guys that were my boys. I'm like, man, these guys are elite. Their tools are just like off the charts. Like, they were just. I always thought they were in a different level, right? And Miami was my dream. So I would get like back then they give you like these questionnaires to fill out, and I'll toss them.
No way, Jay.
I'll toss them. I was like, I'm not. I want to go to UM. Like, this is my dream. So I never, ever thought about pro ball. And I think for me, too, we talked about, education was so big in my family. And I was like, I want to go to college and I want to graduate. And like, yeah, I always loved baseball and whatnot. But, like, I was like, all right. But I always loved business, too, since I was a kid. So I was like, I want to go to UM and I want to study business. Like, I'm going to study business. And, like, if baseball works out, it works out. And if, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. So I didn't put any pressure on myself with that, getting drafted. And we've talked about this before. Like, man, like, it's tough, man. You're an 18-year-old kid, and you can sign for some money that can help your family and all these different things. And what are you gonna do? So I'm very lucky that like those scenarios were never even thrown in my head, and I can just it was an easy decision for me.
Wow, man. Yeah, I I totally, we could all relate to that, right? Like going and coming here. I think I was talking with Booze or something. It's like, bro, this place alone, just stepping on campus and like understanding what you can get from just being here, meeting people here, is it's worth way more than anything that you could have done or gone when you sign out of high school or go straight to pro ball, bro, because that's it, bro. Like you don't get to experience this, and this is the best experience, bro, that you could possibly have, is play at a university like this and kind of have your family and friends. Like how did your family feel like watching you play here? How was that experience for them?
It was amazing. But let's go back. So when I come into UM, right?
Oh, that's right.
So when I come into UM at the time, I qualified for financial aid.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't get into school on my own, right? I had a 3.3 and I had like 1,000 SAT. Let's say, it was good. Like I mean,
good.
I qualified for Florida Bright Futures, all this stuff, but I just couldn't get into school with that. So at the time too, there was a lot of people telling me like, "Hey, why are you gonna go to UM? You're never gonna play there. They have all these guys, and this, there's a lot of things going on because of the way the roster was set up, right?" So the way the roster was set up at the time, they had like their freshman class. When I was a junior, they had like 6 outfielders, let's say.
Jeez.
So by the time I would have gotten here, like that would have meant no PT freshman year, but I didn't care. I literally was like, if I redshirt my freshman year, I don't care. This was like my dream. Like I just wanted to be on campus. I wanted to wear the Canes on my shirt,
Wow.
So that was kind of like my outlook on all that. So it was that was kind of like where I was at, And then even like to this day, like it's funny, like getting to play here, it was amazing, right? My family was super excited I got to stay home, but like I think it was cool because my mom always kept me humble as far as like, I'll do well in high school and she'd be like, oh, wow, that's cool. But she just didn't know where that would lead to, She didn't understand like, oh, if he does good in high school, we can do this and he can go to pro ball. Like that was never a question. So I never had that pressure. So I come to Miami and it was amazing, right? My grandparents got to watch every single game. My sister was here. All my best friends were here. It was amazing. But that's where I really learned to like deal with stuff, right? We're freshmen in college. We're trying to have fun. We're part of the baseball team. Now you have your high school friends, right? You have your family, cousins, and all that stuff. And it's like all this stuff's going on, right? We're living at home, right? Because that's the way the scholarships works for us.
Yep.
So it's like so many things going on. And it's like, hey, I'm in college. I want to have fun, and I'm in college. So I remember like having, I've talked to my parents and like my family, like, look, like after a game on a Friday night, like I understand like you guys want to go to dinner and you guys want to hang out, but like, I'm trying to hang out with my friends too, like
Yeah.
So just different things like that. And I remember like, we kind of came up with like a schedule, right? Like getting organized, like, all right, on Fridays after the games, I don't do anything because, we have a game Saturday. So, we can, but the guys like to go eat. I remember we'd go like the TGI Fridays.
Yes,
and, like, we do things like that. And then like, Saturday we have a day game the next day. So we wouldn't do anything that day. But then like Sundays, I was like, all right, after the game, game's done at 4 or 5, like, well, family time, we'll hang out, and then, at night we hang out with the boys because Monday was off. So like, it really helped me get organized with my life, which is, that's the hardest thing in life, just getting organized and making the most out of your time. But yeah, going to UM, like I said, it was amazing. And then I remember like, being on deck and like, people yelling, Jay, and I wouldn't look at anybody. I would just keep my head down. I would never look in the stands for anything.
Real?
Yeah. For anything. Never.
What, bro? Yeah, you can't relate, bro. No, I can't relate to that.
Not at all. No, I remember that.
Cause it'll be Jay. Yo, what's good, Jay, bro? Yo, you gotta add a bat, bro, in 2 seconds, bro. Better get ready to go hit. No, one of the first conversations that we had was here one night, and you talked about that double-edged sword of playing here. It was my freshman year, and you talked about it. It's playing here is great because your family's there, but it's a double-edged sword because it's hard, bro. They're gonna be hitting you up for tickets and this and that, and you really have to like focus on kind of that concentration of like, hey, this is what the priority is. Baseball's the priority. Hey, if you can't get everybody in here at the same time, it is what it is, and it's like you have to learn how to kind of fight that battle every single day because it doesn't stop, bro. It does not stop. Let's talk about college because you obviously talked about getting here, being able to play and all that stuff, but like you met somebody obviously that you still know very well, obviously. Like, how was that dynamic when you met Nikki? Like, was it love at first sight? Like, it was like you knew that was gonna be your one forever. How was that?
For me, it was love on first sight, for sure. For sure. I saw her walking around campus, and I was like, man, like, she just seems so cool. Like she played soccer, so Nikki was
the coolest girls, obviously, of course. The soccer players are so cool.
And then that year it was cool because it was like the freshman class was like 12 girls came in like that year, and they were cool, they were fun, and all my boys were the freshmen, right? Like it was Jamal Weeks and Yonder and Dennis Rabin, and they all lived in the dorms together, and these are my little brothers. So we'd all hang out, and you know, it was just natural where we all hung out a
Yeah.
lot. So I remember seeing Nikki and like walking around campus, like, you know, super chill, like sweatpants and just dressed down, wouldn't like makeup and like all this
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And, like she was just a cool girl, and then I remember just meeting her junior year. And we were just cool, you know. We'd all hang out, and it was just kind of, you know, friends. Everyone's friends and stuff. And then I remember, this is the funniest story. So, you know, we had practice. I got drafted. We were practicing, right? So we were practicing for super regionals.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget. Somebody came out. We're stretching, and somebody comes out and says, you know, Jon Jay drafted, you know, St. Louis Cardinals. And I remember everyone was like, oh, Jay, Nikki.
Yeah.
So, because Nikki's from St. Louis.
Yep.
So I was like, oh, Nikki. And I'm like, Nikki. And I'm like, dude, you know, I'm 21 years old. I'm like, dude, this is, you know, like, what do you, like.
Oh, because you guys are just, it was just like boyfriend and girlfriend
Yeah,
or
we were boyfriend
whatever,
and
like in college.
Yeah, we hadn't even had a title. We were just, you know, we were all just hanging
No
out.
way, bro.
And so everyone's like, oh, and I'm like, oh, you know, because I had a long high school relationship, and we were both in the same place. We both had long high school relationships, and we're just kind of like, hey, we just want to, you know, be friends. And so I remember everyone just like all over me about that, like, oh, Jay, this and that. So it was cool. And then, you know, I got drafted by St. Louis Cardinals. It was crazy.
Dude, that's insane because I was thinking about it too. I was like, bro, it worked out perfect. And I think we've talked about it before. Like, oh man, like you got drafted by St. Louis, but like at that time, you guys weren't like getting married or anything like that. You know,
and who knew that I was gonna make it and play in St. Louis?
That's true. That's true. You were like, bro, I'm going to minor leagues, bro. I don't even know where St. Louis is.
And then I'll never forget though that year I was playing pro ball. And she came to visit. So it worked out too because in the summer she would go to St. Louis. And all the St. Louis affiliates you could drive to and all that. And then in the off season I was obviously here, and then spring training was in Jupiter. So it just worked out where we could like see each other and do different things. And then I remember she came to see me in Iowa, Quad Cities, Iowa. And we hung out one night. She went out with all the team and all that. I remember driving on the way home, and like, you know, she gave me the question, like, so what are we? You know, and I was like, you know, you're my girlfriend, you know, and you're young at the time. And then like, and the next day I was like, you know, man, you know, she's really my girlfriend. Like now we're getting serious. So like, it's a funny story with that, but yeah, it's amazing. You know, we have 3 beautiful kids together.
Oh man.
You know, it's been a fun, super fun ride.
What a blessing, bro. What a blessing. And you talked about getting drafted like it was no big deal, bro. But like being a second round pick, that's a pretty big damn deal. How was approaching the draft when you were playing here? Like, how was it? Was there pressure then, or was it like, nah, no big deal? Same thing as like, hey, this is the next step. This is where I got to go if I want to play there. Like, how was that experience for you?
Yeah, so the draft is interesting, you know. Coming here freshman year, you know, Eric San Pedro gets drafted in the second round, and then, you know, my sophomore year, you know, Ryan Braun goes in the first round. Cesar Carrillo goes in the first round. Yeah. So I'm seeing my boys, you know, getting drafted and doing all these things. And then I remember a big factor to me, too, was Robert Andino. You know, I grew up playing with Robert Andino. He signed out of high school, and he got called up to the big leagues, I believe, in 05 or 06. So when you see your friends having success, and you're like, man, I could do this, too. Sean Rodriguez was in pro ball, and all these. Gio Gonzalez was in pro ball. You know, so, you know, it was always cool to run into them, and they would encourage you, like, Jay, you know, you're going to kill in pro ball. You know, I've seen these guys and all that. But I never, like I said, I never took myself too serious with all this stuff. But my sophomore year, one of the coolest things I got to do was I got to play for the college national team with USA teams, you know. So I'm with all these guys, and you're looking back at the year before, everyone that played USA team win the first round. It was unbelievable, you know. And I think that 05 draft is like, arguably to me, is like the best draft in the history. So that happens. So after my sophomore year, you know, you meet with advisors and whatnot. So I remember telling my mom, like, oh no, a bunch of advisors want to meet with me. She's like, why do you need an advisor? I'm like, Mom, I have a chance to get drafted as a junior. She's like, no, you're gonna finish school. And I'm like, Mom, I understand that, but like, I have a chance to maybe make a little bit of money, you know, and then I can come back and finish school whenever. But like, if I want to make it in baseball and I see all my friends, like, I have a chance to, like, who knows, but like, this is what you have to do. So I remember just
fighting with your mom
with all that, like, just explaining to her like how all this worked, which is super cool, you know.
Yeah,
so it was so that's kind of like my whole thing going to pro ball. And then so then, you know, junior year I was able to get drafted in the second round, and you know, we went on a great run with the Omaha. It was super fun. And I remember my junior year, the thing that sticks out the most is, so 05 we're just loaded. We had the twins, the Figueroa twins. Pac was coaching at first base now with the Phillies, and like, you know, we had so much talent, and we were all, you know, we lost to Nebraska to go to Omaha. But then the next year we lost a lot of guys. So the next year, like we talked about, all these freshmen coming: Jamal Weeks, Yonder Alonso, Dennis Rabin, Blake Cody, like these studs, right? Dogs. But like, you know, when you get here, like, yeah, in high school it's a lot different. Like here, we got to really be a team. So the first, and it's an adjustment. So the first, you know, half of the season we were okay, But in the second half, it just all started clicking, right? And then we just caught a run, and we went to Omaha and all that. So, that was one of the best memories that we got to do and all that. And that was obviously my junior year, my draft year.
Jeez, man, it was perfect timing is all, bro. I talk to people a lot about going to Omaha, and like, people wonder like, oh man, like that must be the best feeling ever. But like, I know you talk about it a lot, like not getting that ring from here, from the University of Miami. Well, you got a ring from the University of Miami, but it's a little. We'll get there. Like, was that a tough pill to swallow? Because I live with that every day. Like, that was my thing. Like, damn, bro, I wish you would have won it here.
No, for sure. It's one of those things that like you look back and you're like, you wish you could have won. But what I am proud of our group when I was here was that, like, man, we got after it. Like, we put in the work, and we really did, and it just didn't work out. The older I get, I realize that more. But it does sting where, like, that's the one ring that I'm missing. We were able to win a ring in Columbus.
Yep.
I want to win the minor leagues, obviously in the big leagues, and then that's the one that, like, it's still, I'm like, man, that's like. And honestly, like, for me, it was like a learning moment. Not learning, but a moment I always go back to, right? Where, I mean, I had a chance. We were playing Rice my junior year. We had men on first and third, 1 out. 8th inning, I think the score was 2-1, and I'm up, and I have so many options. I can bunt. I can do so many different things. And I was like, I'm going to get a hit right here. And I remember the guy's name was Bryce Cox. He ended up going the 3rd round with the Red Sox. I'll never forget this. Dude, like 98 with a nasty slider. And I'm like, I'm going to, I just got to put the ball in play. And I remember I struck out right there in a huge moment, and it's something that like, I was like, man, if I would have got a hit here, because we opened up against Oregon State that year. We beat them like 11-1. I forgot what the score was. Like, we
killed them.
Ran through them. The next game was the Rice game. We win the Rice game. We're 2-0 in the driver's seat, right? And Oregon State ends up winning the whole thing. So it's just funny how things worked out. And like, that was my one moment where I was like, man, I wish,
that could have been the turn of the century right there.
That strikeout turns everything around right there.
All right, brother. We've talked obviously about Columbus, but now let's get into pro ball, because obviously everybody knows you as somebody that has had a marvelous, successful major league career, 10 plus years in the big leagues. But it wasn't always easy for you. Like, yeah, you were a 2nd round pick, but you got to AAA pretty quick. But then you sat there for almost 3 years, basically, right? Like, how was it seeing? I'm sure you saw guys like getting called up next to you, and then they wouldn't call your name until finally you did. Like, how was that feeling of like understanding like, hey, you just gotta wait your turn. You gotta wait your turn. How was that for you?
Yeah, I mean, I was very lucky. My agent Nes Balello was like, he was always on my side, like just teaching me how the game worked, right? And baseball, it's a business at the end of the day. So like, things go on that you have no idea that are going on, and he was really good at kind of explaining to me as it went. Like, I'd ask him like, hey, how come this happened? And he would explain to me what's going on. So, for me, yeah, I went straight to low A when I signed, which is, on the fast track. And I'll never forget, I went to Instructs that year, and we sat down with like, the farm director and the whole brass, and I remember they asked me a question. And I've always been the type of person that's like, if you ask me a question, I'm gonna tell you the truth. I'm not gonna go up to you and tell you like this and that, unless you're like, if I see something going on, whatever. Especially being respectful to coaches and all that.
Of course.
So I remember sitting down the thing, and they sat down. They're like, hey, where do you see yourself starting next year? So I was like, AA. And I remember one of the hitting guys starts laughing, like, AA? Like, hey, slow down, kid, this and that. I'm like, you guys asked me the question. Like, what do you want me to say? You want me to shoot down, or you want me to shoot up? And in my head, my confidence, it was a quiet confidence, but it came from, like, knowing that guys that I knew did that same transition. Like I talked about, guys came before me, went straight from college to AA, and I played against these guys, and I had done well. So I was like, this didn't faze me at all, right? So I go to my first minor league camp, and I'm in AAA camp, and I'm 21 years old because I turned during camp. So I'm 21 years old, and you were 6-year minor league free agents, and back then guys were 35, 36 in AAA, and I'm 21. So everyone's asking me like, oh, what organization were you with last year? I was like, no, I just got drafted last year. So right away, guys are like, oh, what are you doing here? It's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. So, and I just stayed quiet, hit ninth and just did my thing. But that off season was like my first time where I had a real, I had a break from baseball, right? So I remember from lifting a lot, my shoulder got tight on me. So I go to camp and I couldn't even throw a baseball because my shoulder was so tight on me. So I'm playing and I'm just DHing and whatnot. And I remember they told me that like something like, hey man, like if you can't throw, you're gonna stay back here in rehab or whatnot, this and that. Like, what do you want to do? And I remember getting a cortisone shot just to kind of alleviate the pain, and it just freed everything up. And I was able to go to AA. So I go straight to AA. I'm hitting like 2/3. Well, I start off really slow. I start picking it up, and then I remember in pro ball I had told myself like I'm not gonna slide head first anymore because I don't want anything small can happen.
Yeah.
But then I remember we were in Wichita. It was an old turf field, and I hit a triple, and I slide feet first, and I kind of went past the bag, and my arm grabbed, and boom, there went my shoulder. So that was my first, bit of adversity in pro ball. We're like, oh, I'm hurt now. My shoulder popped out, get MRI, torn labrum. So I go down to Florida, and I'm rehabbing. And then this arm shuts down on me, so I'm just like, wow, this is like, what's going on here? And that's the first time I really got smacked in the face of like, man, I start off in AA, first year pro ball, like I do well here, this, and like the picture, it's there, like you can kind of see that picture when so I remember being high A and like I couldn't throw, so they'd have me DH, and then I remember just like every day I come in like, hey, can I just get surgery and get this taken care of, and like I just want to be healthy, like no, we want you to get at bats. I'm like, I didn't understand like the whole concept of getting at bats. I'm like, I was just in AA. Why am I gonna go back to high A? Like I already did this. Like, so I was like, let me just get surgery. So finally at the end of the year, I got surgery. Then I went to AA next year. Had a great first half in AA. And then I remember because it was funny. My mom was actually visiting me and my grandparents, and we're in Springfield. And our scouting director at the time, who I was doing well, and they called somebody else up to AAA, an outfielder, and I was hot.
Boy,
I was hot. I mean, I was hitting like 333 at the break with 11 home runs, which that's
damn,
like unheard of.
Yeah,
and they were like legit home runs. Were like I
bombs.
Adam Ottavino, that's still playing to this day. He was on our team, and I would hit a ball, and I put my head down, just run the bases, and I get in the dugout, and he'd be like, Jay, do you know where that ball landed? I'm like, what are you talking about? And like he'd point it out. I'm like, man, I did that. Like it was hilarious with that. So I don't get called to AAA, and I remember after the game, I was pissed. I was hot, and I remember the scouting director was there. And the way I talked to him, the way I reacted to him, my mom, she knows me best. My mom was like, hey, I don't like the way you just treated him right now. And I'm like, Mom, I understand, but I'm not happy right now. This is my career. And the reason the other guy called up wasn't a valid reason. So I was like, this is not, this is okay. My career.
Yeah,
this is not okay. So that was a funny story from there. But then, so then in August, I finally, that in 08, I got called up. So essentially I missed, 07 was just a wash year. 08, I get called up to AAA. I was there for like a month with veteran players. I mean, guys are 35, 36. I was 23 years old. And then I dove back to first base. Shoulder pops out again. Right? So then I was like, oh man, here we go again, So then the year before, my rehab schedule for therapy was they wanted me to be at the conference in Jupiter. So I said, all right, I live in Miami. I'm not going to Jupiter. So I would drive up on Monday. I leave here, let's say 12 o'clock. I'd get there at 1:30. Then I'd rehab from 2 to 5. I would go to Barnes & Nobles, and like look at magazines and who knows what, just entertain myself for a little bit. I'll go to Outback, I remember, and I'll sit at the bar, and I'd eat dinner by myself on whatever specials they had. And then I'd go watch a movie. And then I'd crash on my buddy's couch. And then I'll get up at 6, be there by 6:30, and then I'd rehab from 6:30 to 10:30, and then I'd drive back down to Miami. So I did that for 2 months.
So you do 2 days and then drive back to Miami. 2 days.
So I was Monday, Tuesday, drive back, be home for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So I did that for 2 months. I did that. So in 08, when I got hurt again, I said, they wanted me to come back to Jupiter. I go, I'm not doing this.
Heck no.
Bro. So I'm like, I'm going back to school. So I actually came back to school, and I took 3 classes that semester.
Wow.
Went back to school, took 3 classes, and it was amazing. And we talk about things happening. So I took an intro to entrepreneurship class that year. That kind of just opened my mind to everything. We had to do a business plan, and we had to do all these different things, and it was amazing. And it was really cool because Jimmy Graham was still playing basketball at the time, and we had class together there. And that's where we kind of, we hit it off and we became friends there. So it was just super cool. Like, I got to meet people. I got to actually be in campus and not be worried about, like, all this, how the baseball schedule is just nonstop. So that was one of those moments where, but again, I'd wake up in the morning, go do all my therapy for a couple hours with Ron Yakub, and then I go to class, and then it was like all this thing, So it was like
routine, still routine,
oriented, all that, and then so 09, I go to my first big league camp. I didn't find out I was going to big league camp till like a week before camp.
Jeez.
And it was like one of those things, like you want to go and all these different things. So I go to big league camp, and I'll never forget this. Right, I showed up the day before it started, which is a huge no-no.
Yeah, no,
you got to be there a week before. But I didn't know. I truly didn't know. Nez had mentioned something to me about it, but I was just like, oh yeah, just kind of like. But no other player had really like, just like, hey, do this.
Yo, get there.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm in Miami doing my thing here. I'm working.
It wasn't like you were sitting at home.
I'm working, And then so Tony La Russa, manager. You have Albert Pujols. You have veterans everywhere. But kept doing my thing, and St. Louis was unbelievable, right? big league camp, like if you weren't there by 6 o'clock in the morning, like you were getting that look of like, where you been? You know, like where have you been right now? You know, so that's where I started. I'll get there at 5:30. I'll do my thing. I did really well in camp, and I'll never forget David Freese telling me one day, he's like 2Js, man. Like, he's like, dude, thank God you balled out, man. But you know, they would have sent you out just for like showing up the day before, you know, in first cuts, you know.
What?
Yeah. So like, and I was like, and like I didn't realize. I was like, man, this is like
the Cardinal way.
The Cardinal way. I was like, man, this is like,
legit.
you know. And then like, you know, that's why I always made a point with everyone from here on out. Like, hey, you're going to camp. Hey, get here, do this. This is what you got to do. You know, kind of the playbook of everything. Because I had to learn the hard way. So AAA season was amazing. You know, go to 09 AAA. We were the youngest team in AAA. We were the youngest team in AAA by far. You know, everyone was 23, 24. There's still veterans around or whatnot. And the team was super talented. We ended up winning the AAA championship, which was awesome. So backtrack with that. Someone else got called up.
Boy.
An outfielder gets called up when they need an outfielder. And I'm like sitting here like, you know, you're like, you want to make it. And like, and I'm like, what's going on here? Like, you know, and that was our protection year to get put on the 40-man roster. Right? But they don't have to do that till
after the season.
So that's when the business starts coming. So then my agent kind of explained to me the whole thing. I'll never forget being in Omaha and just so upset and like, just like, what is going on? And Alan Craig and myself, I'll never forget, like we went to the bar and like had a couple drinks and it was just like, man, you know, we're just soaking. We're soaking. I'm not a soaker, but we were just like, how did they not call me up? Like, I don't understand this. And then, you know, talk to my agent, all that. And then he kind of explained to me the whole deal. And I said, all right, you know what? I'm not going to worry about this anymore. I'm just going to worry about being the best version of me, like how I always have, you know, and keep playing. So, yeah, the team we went on a run. We won AAA championship. We swept everybody. It was amazing. And that was our goal, right? Our goal, we said, hey, the Cardinals have a veteran team. No one's going anywhere here.
Yeah.
Right? Let's win AAA to show these guys that we were winners. And it's funner because after that time period where like we accepted we were there, we would make up rumors all the time, right? Because AAA, you know how it is. After the game, people are looking at the TV. If somebody got hurt or did the pitcher throw more, who's going up and who's going down? And I used to like, dude, what are you doing? You're wasting your time. So we used to, you know, the Cardinals were notorious back then for signing like veteran players, you know, like veteran players. So like, we'd make up a rumor like, man, did you hear the Cardinals are signing Pedro Martinez? Or like, you know, we would mess with guys all the time just to like, you know, get it going. Like older players and like just to get it going or not. So, you know, we ended up winning AAA, which was amazing, man. It was amazing. And then, you know, that time I kind of had a choice, right? Like I was a little too old to go to the fall league, and I had already had so much experience. So I was like, you know what? I need to you know, do something for my career. So I ended up going to Venezuela. So I ended up playing in Venezuela. Like they didn't make me go. They didn't do anything. They're like,
that was you. That was all you.
Me. I was like, I want to. Like I'm gonna go to Venezuela. I'm gonna go to Venezuela and play. And it was one of the better experiences of my life. You know, getting to play in front of a crowd and really learning how to play outfield. And I remember when I went there, I knew I was gonna get put on the 40-man roster.
Yeah.
But I was like, all right, I'm here. Like I'm not doing any crazy stuff. You know, I'm not running into walls. I'm not gonna do any of this stuff, right? And I'll never forget the first ball gets hit at me behind the wall, and I hear the crowd. And I'm like, if I don't catch this ball, I'm not gonna be able to walk the streets of Venezuela. You know what I mean? Like they will not And I remember crashing to the wall, catch the ball, the crowd went crazy, and like, you know, so that's where I really learned how to play outfield, right, with a crowd. Because in the minor leagues, you get some crowds and whatnot, but like Venezuela was like intense, where you couldn't hear anything all the time. So that was a great experience for me there. Met one of my really good friends, Josh Tolley, that ended up being a played too. So we were together all the time. And it was cool. That was, I forgot how many years that had been since Caracas had won the championship, but we were only there for the first half, but we helped get them qualified and all that. So that's a proud moment of mine playing in Venezuela and being part of that team that won the championship.
Wow. Is that where you learned, I guess, how to, because one of the things that I know about you is that you run the outfield. Like, I mean, you've been in the outfield with some of the biggest players to ever play the game, and like, you were the guy running the outfield. Like, is that where you learned how to do that and like be loud, moving guys? Like, where did that come from?
I think it started in Columbus a little bit. That started, but it isn't as technical then. But I think for me, you know, with Gino, Gino, he instilled that in me, and like I kind of took pride in that. Like I always wanted to be the guy that like I didn't want to get moved. You know, like I didn't want a coach to be like, hey, do this. So like I'm watching the game and I'm seeing things and I do it and like double check, like, oh yeah, you're good. And then once I started getting that figured out, but then I kind of ran the outfield all in the minor leagues and then
big leagues,
you know, big leagues and stuff. Yeah, it was pretty cool. And then that was something that like I really appreciate the coaches that I had, that they allowed me to do that, you know, 'cause that's not common, but you know, it was a trust factor, like sitting down with them and like, you know, I think nowadays like kids and in general, like we want things right away. And like it's like no, you have to work the relationship first. You got to prove yourself. So, I think I proved myself through. We talk about work ethic. I proved myself through shagging BP, and they'd watch and like, oh, this guy's really getting after. And then like asking questions, and like, I was super blessed too. I had Yadier Molina with me, where I'd watch him do film, and I'd sit next to him, and he'd give me a game plan. Like, hey, look, this guy we're gonna do this. Hey, this guy we're gonna do that. Hey, make sure on this and that. So it's not like I did it all by myself, right? We talk about this.
Yeah, no.
I've gotten to this point, but like I've had so much help and so many good people around me. Where I remember a perfect example was Alfonso Soriano, right? He would hit fastballs and he'd drive the ball to right center field to Oppo. But if you threw him a slider, he'd hook it down the line. And I'll never forget Yadi telling me, like, hey, when we play Soriano today, we're going to do something different. You're going to stay in right center, but I want Holiday down the line, right? And we're going to give him the gap,
left, yeah.
And then that's when I started, Daniel Descalso would give me signs in the outfield, right? Nowadays, you have PitchCom, which I'm like, dude.
Wow, that would have been easier.
Now you know everything. Yeah. So I would, like, give a signal. Like, I knew a slider's coming and they're gonna hook it. I'd be like, yee! I like, hey, yee! So that they can know, the outfielder can know, like, hey, shuffle right before the pitch and start heading that way. But like Yadi would teach me just the way he approached the game. He started teaching me how he did, like reading swings and all these different things. And I could have a conversation with him of like, hey man, like, this happened, but whatever it is. Or he would ask me, it was amazing. It was amazing, like earning that trust with him and that relationship we had, and running the outfield. Like for me, that was the funnest part, right? Playing the outfield. Like, to this day, I still shag now. Yeah. And I love it. And like, I love the nuances of like the pitches and seeing things and like really like getting down to like, saving games on defense. That was awesome.
Yeah. No, you've always obviously taken pride in that and like working at it too. Like I remember seeing you here always with the tennis ball machine or whatever, like always working on your craft, which is obviously why you were so good out there. Tell me about 2011, bro. Tell me about that year. Like, tell me about, I mean, we could jump straight to obviously Game 6, or we could talk a little bit about that entire year and how kind of you felt. Did you know, like, did you have a feeling? Was that the team? Like, how did you feel about that year?
Yeah, I mean, one of the best things when I played with St. Louis, right? Like, that organization, they're trying to win the World Series every single year. And that's expectation. So from day one, that's what you're working to. The manager's Tony La Russa. Like, he expects nothing but excellence.
Yeah.
And attention to detail and all these different things, right? So in 2010, we had a pretty solid team. Some things happened, and it's funny. I actually happened to be at an end of the year dinner where Tony was kind of like, oh, this team, it's just past my time with this team. And I remember Chris Carpenter telling him, like, hey, we make a couple of little moves here and there, and this team wins the World Series, and you're coming back next year. Like him literally telling him that.
Wow.
And I remember being a youngster there, and I remember too him asking for opinions, and Skip Schumacher was there too, and Skip was like, kind of gave me the face of like, hey, young fella, you don't say a word right now. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, like stay out of this.
And it was awesome. So like, that's why I wanted to tell the story. Is like, that's what I really learned. Like, oh, like my place in it, right? My place in it. Like, I couldn't wait to be a veteran under Tony, where I can have these like veteran conversations.
Yeah.
I was still on the bottom. I had to earn my stripes. So like, Tony and I had a great relationship, but it was always like, and I appreciate it because he wants guys to stay humble. He wants guys to stay hungry. So when you're a younger guy playing with Tony, like, you'd have a little bit more meetings and you have a little bit more of this and that. And, sometimes I would look at him like Tony, man, like, come on. What, like,
yeah.
Like, I'm going to shag every day. I'm not going to, like, my head's not going to get big. Like, I'm going to, we're going to work. And that was the group of guys we had. Alan Craig, David Freese, Daniel Descalso. Like, these are my guys. And we that was our support system. So come 11, Descalso and I were the bench players coming. We made the team as the bench guys, right? And we were just joking about it the other day where we went to every spring training game and stayed to the end.
Wow, bro.
And this is Florida.
Yeah,
this is like you're driving 2 hours, coming back, driving there, like
not the 20-minute drives that we had over
and
there.
we, because Tony saw that we were going to be the bench guys, so we had to get our bats there, right? So we drive the Fort Myers, the starters would play, and then we come in from the 7th to the 9th, and then come back, and that was us having played in the big leagues the year before. We're usually like nowadays, like you have a double A guy coming in, and then you see you later. You're putting on a program. So it was just interesting, like all that stuff that kind of molded me. So in 11, it's funny. Tony hadn't told anybody they made the team yet, but I'm like, I'm making this team,
Yeah.
So they had the sign-up sheet for the cars to ship the cars to St. Louis, and I remember putting my name on the thing, and Tony's like, hey, you put your name on the thing, like who said you're making the team? Like one of those things. And I'm like, I don't see any other guys. I don't know who else is gonna be the fourth out there here. Like who else can play center field and hit off the bench and like, I just hit 300 the year before, so I was just like, quiet confidence of like,
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm gonna make this
I'm
team.
going
You
to
know?
the big leagues, bro.
So yeah, that was fun. And then obviously, that year, Albert Pujols, Yadier Molina, Adam Wainwright gets hurt right away. Chris Carpenter. I'm mentioning these names because these are like legends.
Dogs.
Lance Berkman. I'm a youngster and like looking up to these guys. Matt Holliday. Like it was incredible. Ryan Terrio we had just traded for. Gerald Laird. Like our team was just like veterans and stacked. And I was just like, I remember some training just like being like, wow, this is so cool.
Crazy.
So the season goes on. Obviously you hear ups and downs and whatnot. And then was doing pretty well. And then at the All-Star break, we needed pitching. So they make a trade that allowed me to become the starting center fielder. So we bring in Octavio Dotel, who was amazing. What a personality. Edwin Jackson, who I call him the godfather of baseball because this guy, he played for so many different teams. He impacted so many different guys' lives. Like when you guys that were teammates with Edwin Jackson, like everyone will say the same thing. Like this guy is amazing. This guy is the epitome of an ultimate teammate. So brought in Edwin Jackson. Mark Zinchenko came in too. So, we kind of gave us a boost. Oh, and then the X Factor, Rafael Furcal.
Jeez,
a guy that
bro.
I grew up idolizing Rafael Furcal. Idolizing this guy. Like, this is like my guy, So he comes on team. And Fuki's the man. This guy is awesome. He wore number 15 his whole career, right? So I remember Pujols coming up to me before, before the trade happened, maybe a day before or whatnot. They had been talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked me, he's like, hey, we might get Furcal. Do you mind giving up your number 15? I was like, dude. Sure. Like, what? But it's funny because my birthday is March 15th. So I love 15. Like, that was one of the numbers I always loved. And then it's funny because the equipment guy, our guy at the time, Rip One, he hooked me up with number 15 that Jim Edmonds had just won for, who's a legend.
Jeez.
So think about it, I'm playing in St. Louis wearing 15. That's an extra pressure on me.
Yep.
Which I didn't care. But, like, the fans, like, oh, how did they get this number away and this and that? And it's like, I'm like, a lot of guys, St. Louis, you get called up and you're wearing 63 or 75 like right away, and I wore 15. And I remember being on first base a couple times, and I got to wear Jim Edmonds' like legit custom batting wristbands because they were there, so they hooked me up. And I remember being on first base. They were like, "Hey kid, how'd you get those?" I'm like, "I don't know. They gave it to me. Like it was like a fresh like two-tone number 15, all that." So Furcal comes over. And Fuki's a man. And at first he didn't even know that I was number 15. I gave it to him, And then after, man, he was ecstatic and like he was so cool. Hooked me up with a little gift and like was just the man.
Bro.
And he's someone I still talk to this day. Like he's my guy. He's awesome. So then that's part of the story there. We keep going to 11. We were out of it. We were out of it in August. Like way out of it. And I remember Chris Carpenter called the team meeting. It was like, hey, we all worked super hard since the offseason. Spring training we got after it. This team is super talented. Let's just play the last 45 games with everything. And let's see what happens, So we get in the last day of the season.
Wow.
We get in the last day of the season. We beat the Astros, and then we had to wait to watch the Phillies-Braves game. The Phillies that year, I think they won 110 games or something like that. It was like Roy Halladay, Cliff Lee, Cole Hamels.
Game over.
Like, the left field, Raul Ibanez, Shane Victorino, Hunter Pence, Placido Polanco, Jimmy Rollins, Chase Utley, Ryan Howard, and Chucho Ruiz catching. It was like the team was ridiculous, ridiculous team. So we get in the last day, and it's funny. They beat the Braves, which made them play us, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if the Braves would have beat them that day, they would have played the Braves. And I think, then they go on a run because I feel like we were the only team that could match up with them.
Oh, gotcha.
We were the only team that could do that. So, first round of the playoffs, it goes on to Game 5 against the Phillies in Philadelphia, which everyone's seen what Philadelphia fans bring to the table in the playoffs, the bank. And I got to see it firsthand this year with the Marlins too. It's unreal. That place it's unreal. The fans and how loud it gets and all that stuff. So Game 5, we're in Philadelphia, and it's Roy Halladay against Chris Carpenter. Skip Schumacher, our manager for the Marlins. Furcal leads off of a triple. And it's funny, I didn't start that game.
Oh, wow.
I didn't start that game.
Dang.
Skip started in center field that day. And that's where I learned, Tony just knew. He had his research. Skip had done well against him. So he wanted to get Skip's bat in there.
Wow, bro.
And I had gotten a couple hits against Halladay, but not like that either.
Yeah.
So Skip started. And of course, naturally, you're upset at first. You're like, man, I want to play.
Yeah.
But hey, we're trying to win, and this is
it.
Guy,
it's over. That's all over.
So Furcal hits a triple. Skip hits a double. 1-0 game. So in the 5th inning or so, Skip's second at bat hurts his oblique. So then I get put in the game right away. So then I go into center field. And I'm just like, imagine this game is like, intense. So we end up winning that game. Then we play the Brewers. The Brewers had won the NL Central that year. We went to the Brewers, and then obviously we get to the World Series. We get to the World Series against the Rangers. It was unbelievable, which was, back to back to back. I mean, I didn't sleep a couple of those nights, like
It's like, yo, I didn't sleep, bro.
You lose a game and, you're not performing well and, like, things are happening and you're like, man, is it, if we lose this, it's going to be my fault. Like, what's going on? And, like, all these things are going on and, like, you're just dealing with so much stuff. And it's the World Series, it's the World Series.
That's it, bro. It's over.
It's my second year in the big leagues and I'm in the World Series. I'm like, this is crazy. This is like, I couldn't imagine this like this. So.
Yo, your boys are, like, hanging out in Miami and you're playing in the World Series.
They're everywhere. Omar, Mario, Ryan, Roy, they're traveling with us. They're watching the games. That was the coolest thing,
Oh, that's true, too. Yeah.
I was very lucky that throughout my career, like, it was awesome, the support system I had. My friends got to see all this stuff and, like, they would travel and, like, they'd meet me on the road and, like, so it was really cool where we were able to, like, really share all these experiences, like, going to batting practice in LA and Philly and, like, all these different cities that we were able to have, all these memories and all these experiences that was really, really cool.
Damn, bro. Can you talk to me about Game 6, bro? Because that's going to go down as one of the best games of all time, really. Like, what kind of back-to-back and, like, you obviously scoring the tying run, like, how was the feelings and the emotions in that game, bro?
Yeah, I mean, it was a roller coaster, obviously. Like, it's up and down. Like, we know we lose this game, we're done. You're so close for the ultimate goal of winning a World Series, and it was crazy. So the cool thing for me, too, is, like, we talked about before, like, I came up with Craig, Freeze, Descalzo, Fernando Salas was another guy. So to see all my friends having all the success during this time and, like, our lockers were all next to each other and, like, we'd hype each other up and different things like that. Like, it was awesome. So I actually didn't start Game 6. Came in off the bench, and I remember I didn't have a good first couple games and all that. And I remember telling because Freeze was going off and Craig was going off, and I was like, I remember telling him, this was the boys and us joking around, like, hey man, like come on, just keep doing what you guys are doing, like, cause like you're carrying us. Like, I know I'm not bringing it right now, but like I'll get there eventually, but like just keep carrying me, man, keep carrying me right now, like keep carrying the crew. So yeah, Game 6 comes in, and then come off the bench. I think I got a hit, which was finally my first hit of the World Series. Got a hit, and then the big hit was Descalzo led off the inning. We were down 2 against Darren Oliver, a lefty, right? Lefty situation, and Descalzo just had an unbelievable bat. I think it went 7 pitches. And I'm on deck doing my breathing, calming down, and I'm watching my best friend out there just like grinding and like having a good at bat, and he rips a hit, and I'm like, no,
I
it's
got
my turn, So like, I remember, I think it was the first pitch or second pitch. So I remember I did my classic, Jon Jay blooper.
I just seen it. You did it last year here too, bro. That boy retired.
Classic, my classic little classic blooper to left field. It was awesome, and yeah, big hit that came in, and then I remember coming around the score, the tying run. It was just like, wow, this is surreal. And then
insane.
I remember we tied up that inning. We go out the next inning, and Josh Hamilton was dealing with like a hernia and all this. He wasn't really hitting for power, and St. Louis is a big ballpark to center field, and when it's cold especially. And I remember him cranking the ball to center field, and I remember just dropping my head. I'm like, I'm catching this ball no matter what, like. And I remember it was a home run, and it went far, and I was just like, wow, like we just came back and they just scored 2 runs, and like what is going on here? Like this is crazy. And then obviously David Freese moment when he came up and he hits the 2-run triple, which is unbelievable.
Over
and then
Cruz, right? Over Cruz.
It's a right field over Cruz, and then the last inning, I think I might have been like in the hole maybe or like 2 or 3. And then David Freese, like I said, like we all came up together and like hits a walk-off home run to center field. And I'm just like,
and way out, bro. It got out there.
Way out. And we're just like, I'm like, this is crazy. Like what just happened? I remember just jumping around. I watched the videos and I'm like doing this crazy jump, and like he comes in, and then that's it. And then we had all the confidence in the world. I'm like, after we won this game, like
it's over.
Game 7, like we're coming in here. We got our horse in the mound, Chris Carpenter. Like we're gonna do this thing. And then we won the World Series. Obviously, it was amazing. And then for me, it was awesome. My parents are there. My sister, Omar, and Ryan had flown up that morning to Game 7. My in-laws, and like they partied with us in the clubhouse. So like literally my best friends are partying with us in the clubhouse. And it's funny. I have a video of Ryan and Omar, and we went back on the field, and you see like the scoreboard says 2011 World Series champs and all that, and they ran the bases.
No way.
They ran the bases in my jersey,
Damn.
And then obviously, you win the World Series, you're gonna go out after.
Absolutely.
And then, so this was awesome. I had a guy, I had a guy back then. This is my hustling stuff back then.
Yeah.
Where he had a limo service, right? So
Boy, Jay was a plug over there.
so what I would do was I would exchange tickets
For the limo.
for limo service, And the way our tickets work, like we don't get free tickets, but we pay taxes on the tickets, but we have access to better tickets. So that was my thing. Like like if my parents were coming in town or something like that, like I would send the limo. I'd give the guy tickets. Hey, go pick up my parents. And like I was young, I was like, yo, this is I'm balling out here. So after the game, I hit him up, and we come out, and we had the limo waiting for us. So everything's packed, and we're gonna go out, and some of the officers, obviously, we're friendly with everyone there. It was awesome, and they were nice enough to like, oh, we'll take you, we'll take. So we get police escorted in the limo out for the night, like it was just like one of those things that was, it was a movie. It was a movie, man. It was a movie. It was a real life movie. It was crazy.
Oh,
it was
man.
crazy.
How does that change when you're in a city like that and you win a World Series? Obviously, you still go back all the time, and you guys are always there. You have a home there, obviously. Like, how does it change when you become a World Series champion in a city like St. Louis?
No, it's amazing. St. Louis baseball is unbelievable, right? It's the history, the fans. Like the place has 40,000 people every single night. It's unreal. And I remember like when my friends would come visit, it's like, hey, I've never seen so many people wearing red and Cardinals and this and that. Like it was just such a different experience. And then my buddies too. I remember like we went out to eat somewhere, and like like you're meeting everyone. Like the chef comes out to say what's up and whatnot. And then my boys are like, dude, do we only go places where like the chef comes out to eat? Like what's going on here? And I used to tell him like, dude, this is just such a different, like it's a different place. And we talked about going away for college and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like the culture here is just so different. Like they appreciate Cardinals baseball so much, and they're so loyal to the fans and like all these different things. So like, yeah, obviously, my life changed forever after that moment. It's something that I think about it every single day. I'm like, that moment changed my life forever.
Wow, bro. No, and you earned it, bro. You earned every bit of it. I want to talk a little bit about now coaching, like making that transition. Obviously, having an ultra successful career, but then having that moment where it's like, I know we talked about it hundreds of times, but like, do I do it? Do I not? Do I coach? Do I not? Like, how was that experience for you, and how did that decision come about? And then talk to me about like the hiring process, like when you went in and interviewed with the Marlins and Skip called you and all those things. Like, run me through that time there and where you were at mentally.
Yeah, so it kind of started for me after 2020. Obviously, so much was going on, and it was a lot. My family wasn't even with me during the season because protocols and all these different things. So I was content with my career and everything after 2020, and I was like, all right, I was gonna be done. Then the Angels, offered an opportunity to go and all that. I had played with Joe Madden previously, so that was a big appeal to me. So I talked to Nikki. She was pregnant at the time with our son, and because my goal was always like, hey, when the girls start kindergarten, like I want to be done. I want to be at home. I want to be around and stuff, So I said, you know what? I'm gonna give it one more year. I'm gonna give it one more shot. But after the 2020 season, actually, one of my mentors, Ahmed Darwin, he runs a great company in St. Louis called Synergy Productions, and they're in hospitality. And like I love hospitality, and I love all these getting events together and different things. So we met years ago, and like kind of always like bounced ideas off him, or like in Miami, whatever's going on, all that. So he sat me down one day, and we had like, this is the first time we had like a serious conversation, right? And he was like, what do you want to do next? I was like, no, I want to play. He's like, well, why do you want to play? If you're, you have this, like, why do you want to play? And like, at first I was like, dude, why are you talking to me this way? And like,
yeah.
But he was challenging me the way I needed to be challenged, right? We talk about being uncomfortable, and that's when it comes out, right? So at the end of the thing, he was like, all right, you're playing for the right reasons. You're not playing for the wrong reasons, right? Wow. So go do that. But he challenged me. He said, this is what you're gonna do. He's like, work on this. So what he had me do is write like a family tree, right? Or my interests, right? What are all my interests, right? And then another thing was like, realistically, right now, what kind of job do you think you can get right now, right? Your core is baseball, right? So within baseball, what are opportunities for you, right? So obviously I wrote coaching, right? Front office, broadcasting, right? So I just went through, in baseball, what are all these things we're gonna do, right? And then it was almost like family, all right? Who's my network in baseball, right? So I started writing down the names of like the GMs I know, scouting directors, and the beauty of my career was, I spent 6 years in St. Louis, but then I went to 6 more teams in 5 years, right?
Yep.
So I got to meet so many amazing people, right? Like when I was a free agent with the Cubs, when I signed with the Cubs, I took that free agent meeting by myself, right? like Nez and I would talk about things and
Yep.
you know what to say, what not to say, and all. You know, he coached me up on don't it's simple. Don't talk numbers. Just talk normal and
Yeah, yeah.
let him handle that stuff, right? And with me, it was cool because he trusted me. He's molded me this whole time, so he knows what about all that. So I'm sitting in a room with Theo Epstein and Jed Hoyer. So Jed's running the Cubs right now, and then Theo's with the commissioner's office, and obviously everyone knows what Theo's done in this game. Of course. And I'm there, and we talk baseball for 8 hours.
Wow, bro.
And for me, it was really encouraging. Where I remember Theo said something that stuck with me to this day was, he's like, hey, like regardless if you sign with us or not, which I knew I was gonna sign there. Like it was gonna happen. But he's like, hey, you're going to come be our farm director one day. And I was like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, farm director? Like, this is like, I was like, all right, cool. But, like, I put that in the back of my head. I'm like, man, cool. That's confidence for me. All right, cool. That's confidence. And then in 2016, with the Padres, I got hit by a pitch, so I missed 2.5 months. So there, I would stand with the coaches. And the manager there, Andy Green, was amazing, right? I come from this culture in St. Louis. So he'd always pick my brain, and we'd bounce ideas off each other and whatnot. So when I got hurt, most of the time you get hurt and they just send you off. Like, hey, go rehab here, do this. And he's like, no, I want you traveling with the team. And I was like, man, this is amazing, right?
Wow.
So I was just I was another coach on the team. And then Tarek Brock, who was the first base coach and the outfield coach with the Pirates, he was my first base coach there. Eddie Rodriguez, that's the third base coach with the White Sox right now, was the third base coach there. So we'd sit there and it was almost like I was a coach. And like me and T would he'd be like, oh, we should move the guy here. And I'd be like, no, but he just did this. And like his swing does this. So like we'd, all this, positive conversations of like how coaching works and all these things. So I was like, man, I liked it. And like, so once I did that, because when I got hit by that pitch, I was like, all right, what if I can never play again? Let me take this coaching stuff serious. Let me see what's going on. Wow. And then I realized, like, man, I can do this. Like we'd move guys and like different things and like stuff would happen or like
we got it.
Working with some of the young guys, like it was so cool for me to see Travis Jankowski this year with the Rangers, right? He was a rookie that year, and he was awesome. Like he'd want to work and he'd want to do things and like and he would come in as a defensive replacement to right field. So we'd finish off the game when I was playing. It would be BJ Upton in left field, me in center field, and Travis Jankowski in right field. Not a ball was falling. It was so cool. So like got to work with him, like Hunter Renfroe. Got to work with some stuff with him then when they were youngsters, and then he ends up winning a Gold Glove years later. So like all these things kept building up. I was like, wow. So to get to the point now where I had my list written down and like kind of was working with all these different opportunities or what I can do. I was having a lot with the Players Association when I played too. So that was part of the thing in baseball. If I wanted to stay in baseball and like having my contacts and my relationships. So that was kind of like where I left it, but. I've talked about a lot, education. I always said, I'm going to finish my degree. I'm going to finish my degree. So when I got done playing in 21, I said, I'm not going to look for a job. I'm not going to seek anything out there. I'm going to go back to school. Once I finish school, then I'll go do whatever I want to do. And then that year with the Angels as well, I had conversations with them. They wanted to hire me out of spring training. Like, I was terrible at spring training that year. Yeah. And we talk about dealing with so many things, right? Nikki's pregnant, living in St. Louis. I'm in Arizona. All these, my kids are gone. Like it was just so many things going on, and I was just kind of like, so I remember they called me in and so this is funny. This is the first time I got cut in 11 years.
Wow.
Right? Which is a scary feeling because you're like, I haven't been cut in 11 years. Like, yeah. And I knew I was gonna get cut. Juan Lagares was going off, so they put me in the office and everyone's there and they're like, hey, look, like you're not gonna make the team right now, but we got a couple options for you. Like you could work for us right now. And I was like, look, that's flattering and all that, but I know I can still play, right? Like, let me make some adjustments. I'm good. My hands had got installed, this and that. 3 days later, I was back, hitting the ball like I could. But it was just another boost of confidence of knowing, like, oh, wow, this is a path that I could take, right? Yep. So 21 goes through. The business of the game, things happened that I wasn't too happy about, all that. And it was just my time to go, Like, I was just like, all right, I did the USA thing. I was part of the qualifying thing. That's something I was super proud of. But then they reconfigured the team after. So I wasn't part of that. And I was kind of like, you know what? This is, it's time. And I was in AAA one day, and I remember I was just like, I called the Angels and was like, is there a chance of me getting called up? But at that time, younger guys were going to come up, and I understood all that. So I literally bought a flight and just showed up home. I was like, see you later, I'm out. So, it wasn't easy, and it's a transition. But I always knew, like, okay, when I'm done, what's going to bridge me is I'm going back to school. Yeah. Right? So we spent the summer in 21 in St. Louis. And then moved back in. I spent the whole summer in St. Louis and the fall there. Oh wow! Then we came back in the spring of 2022. So we come back in spring of 2022, and yeah, I enrolled back in school. So I enrolled back in school. I took 9 classes spring and fall, and wasn't seeking a job or anything, right? Like, oh, and then another cool thing with that was, remember, I got to work the regionals.
That's right.
So
You were here
announcing.
broadcasting.
So I broadcasted regionals, and I loved it. I mean, just got thrown into the fire. Had never done anything. Didn't know what I was doing. Like, literally, like, I can talk about the game, but just having notes and like, I remember I would say stuff like, "Oh," and the umpire, and it's like, "No, you got to know his name." Like, so I started learning about my notes and like doing things like that, and like, and imagine you're doing regionals where it's 4 teams,
That's
right?
true.
4 teams, and it's a different team every time. And I remember it was Canisius College, and like just pronouncing that at the time was like, and then a lot of guys there had names that like I was not used to pronouncing, so I learned so much, and I was like, man, you know what, like, this is the hardest I'll ever have to do this is regionals, because so many teams, like, if I do like series at a time, I think I can, and you tell the stories and like everything will work out. So I was kind of like gun ho, and I was like, man, you know what? I like this broadcast. I like college. I like Little League World Series. So then I was kind of like, you know what? What if I just do college broadcasting? I work the Little League World Series, and then I can, kind of be home and all that stuff. So that was like a big option. I was like, all right, this is cool. So no, I go back to school, and it's amazing, being back on campus at and I did all my classes on campus, right?
In person.
And I was proud to say, like, I didn't miss one class.
Damn.
Didn't miss one class. Because I was like, man, I'm 37 years old. Like, if I fail a class, or if I can't, like, I can't be wasting my time right now. And then, I haven't touched a computer in 15 years. Everything's on the computer. And then the first 2 weeks was on Zoom. So you're share screen and upload this. And I'm like, I don't know how to do any of this stuff. So I'm getting frustrated, right? Like, what am I doing? I don't need to be back in school. I don't have to do this.
I'm going home. Yeah.
Like, what? So, like, it was funny going through that. And then, little by little, people taking care of you, right? Like, some guys, Alejandro Torres that was here, like, hey, don't worry. Hey, helping me out. Brian Walters, like, it was unbelievable. Like, these guys were, like, helping me out and stuff. So it was really cool. Got to spend a lot of time with the guys. That's here awesome. From the team now. Going back to school. And then, like, I mean, I was in Excel. I was in finance. I took families and business, entrepreneurship class. Like, I mean, it was so many different like classes that were like really stimulating me, and I've always loved business. So for me, it was like the best thing that I did, right? So like I said, I never missed class, and it was honestly harder for me. You know how I am. I don't sleep, right? I'm up early. But there, man, I get home at 9 o'clock. Like at 9 o'clock, my brain was like just so like, and it was like, I was like, what is wrong with me? Because like I usually have so much energy and all that, but I was using a side of me that I hadn't used in so long. Yeah, like opening all that up. So that was so I went back to school, and then in the fall, so I still have 5 credits left, right? Gee. Like a big class and then a normal class, which I'm gonna figure out now. But what happened was in October, Skip Schumacher gets a job here, and so just a little backstory on that. Like, so Skip was my mentor with the Cardinals. Like, he was the guy that like LaRusso would be making moves, and the scouts and myself were like, what's going on here? He's like, hey, this is what happened. Like, he pinch hit for this guy, like, this was going to, explain every move. Yep. The game would start, and he'd say, Jay, look, I'm going to be the lefty pinch hitter off the bench today. You're going to probably go into the defense to right field. The scouts will, the only way you'll hit if this happens, but you're going to go into third base to finish the game. Like, literally before the game, he would coach us up on what was going on. Whoa. And then during the game, he taught us how to be a pro. Hey, you go to the cage when the team's on defense, starting the 4th inning. Right, you start getting ready to warm up. But as soon as those guys are coming out the field, you need to be up there, encouraging them. Yeah. Hey, in the 6th, 7th inning, it's okay to stay for 2 innings and hit, because so he literally would just molded us on how all this stuff worked. Like, it was amazing, right? Always had a good relationship, whatnot, and we always stayed in contact or whatever. But then he gets the job here, and it was funny when I saw him getting an interview for the job here, because at first, like we talked about, I was hesitant about getting back in the game. Yep. I want to be home and the time schedule and all this. So when I see he's one of the finalists, like himself, Pedro Grifol, and even George Lombard, like 3 guys that I know.
Dang, bro, you're gonna be there anyways.
It's like 3.
You were gonna be on the staff.
It's like 3 guys that I really know that are finalists, and I was like, man, internally, I'm like, man, like, if they reach out to me, like, to be able to put on a Marlins jersey at home and live at home, like, this is something I can't pass up, because in the past I had been offered other coaching jobs, right? I've been offered by different organizations or whatever. Yeah. But I just wasn't ready for that. Like, I want to be in Miami right now. I want, my kids. I want to get settled and all this stuff. And then, like, I really value, like I said, my girls are in Sunset Elementary. They're learning Spanish. They didn't grow up talking to someone. Like, now it's amazing. My girls are in 1st grade, and they're, like, saying stuff to me. And, like, I'm talking to them a little bit in Spanish. And, like, it's something that I think, it's going to carry them forever. So Skip calls and is like, hey, like, I got the manager job. I would love to have you interview for the job. You know, see if it's something that you'd want to get into. And you know, he kind of did a similar thing. He got done playing, but he got to become a special assistant for a couple years. Then jumped right in and all that. So it's like, you know, it's something I think you can handle or not. But like obviously you have to interview and this and that. And I was like, yeah, you know, like talk to so that happens, right? So then I reached, you know, obviously we know a lot of guys in the game. You know, Alex Cora is a manager with the Red Sox, and like, you know, Will Venables, another close friend. So, you know, I just started reaching out to these baseball guys that are like, you know, just asking for advice. Like, hey, how did you know you're ready to coach? You know, like, how did you know these different things? And then I talked to like 10 different people about all this stuff, right?
Wow.
And then a lot of the people told me was like, hey, look, if you're not ready to coach now, like, don't worry, you're going to always have an opportunity to coach. Like, you know, but I was like, yeah, but to be able to coach with the opportunity maybe to be able to coach with somebody that I know, that I can be myself, and that knows who I am, and it's in Miami where I don't have to move, right? So like, it was just one of these things. Was like, you know, and then I remember talking to Skip about it, just like, hey man, like, you know, you can commit to this, and like, if it's too much or whatever's going on, like, you know, there's always ways to adjust, and you know all that stuff. Like, he was very awesome, very honest with me about stuff. So so I remember I had class on I think it was a Thursday. I had a class. It was a Thursday. I had class that day from like I forgot what I'll go to class in the mornings from 8 to 9:15. I'd have an hour and a half break. That was my last semester. Hour and a half break. I had Excel from 8 to 9:15, and then I'd go straight to the professor's class because I wouldn't understand half the stuff.
I didn't know what that.
So he'd sit down with me, and like, he was awesome, and like kind of walk me through things. Cool. All right, but this is what I did. And then I had finance after that, and then I had a class like at 3, from 3 to like from 3:30 to actually it was like from 4 to 6 or something like that. So I remember the Marlins, Kim reaches out to me, you know, at like 1 that day, like, hey, can you interview tonight? I'm like, I got class, right? I got class till 6, but like, I can come up after, you know. So I remember I interviewed with Kiz and Kim and Alzo Campo, and then another guy that was like our farm director at the time. He's now with the Padres. And nothing, you know, they grilled me. They grilled me on everything. You know, it was an interview. Like, so we talked, and it was a great, you know, we had a great hour and a half, 2-hour conversation about all that stuff. And then, you know, that's it. The rest is history. And then, you know,
wow,
I'm
bro.
coaching.
Dang. What was one of the biggest things you've learned this year from coaching? Like, what is one of the things that you're like, oh shoot, I didn't know this was gonna be like this?
Nah, I mean, I had a pretty good inkling on some stuff, just because, you know, I always kind of played that role with guys.
Yeah.
You know, I think it was easier for me to get messages across when I'm playing because I'm out there doing it with you.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm going through it with you, you know? So that perspective. So I think for me, that was the hardest thing, right? Of like letting these kids know, like, look, I'm here for you. You know, I'm not here for like
me.
I don't have an agenda. I don't have like a, hey, you know, I'm doing this because this is the next step. No, like, I'm here to help you guys. You know, like, I'm here because, like, you know, I believe in Skip. I believe in our staff. You know, Jon Abreu was another guy that was he was my hitting coach at the Cardinals. I know what he's about. You know, and I think that's something that was very special that Skip did last year when putting together the staff, right? Where like, and he said it. He's like, look, yeah, these guys are good baseball guys, and like, you could teach baseball and all that, but like, they're good people with good intentions, and I can trust them. And that's something that really stuck out to me. Where like, you know, like, he knows that like he could go do his thing, and like, there's not somebody trying to take his job, or like someone that's like, oh yeah, I want to do this, I want to do that. You know, like, even with me coming here, like, you know, right away people, you know, say, hey, do you want to do this? I'm like, look, let me be here with this. Skip is my guy. Like, I love the guy. Like, I'll do anything for this guy. Let things happen one step at a time. You know. So then, you know, got the job, and the biggest thing with the guys is, like I said, like, now, without sounding too like, hey, I've been there, done all this.
Yeah.
Right. Like, nobody wants that. Nobody wants to, hey, look, I did it. Go do it. Right. Like, no, like, figuring out that way and that method of like, hey, look, I got to this, and here are my experiences, and I'm not gonna tell you every time what I've done in the game, but like, just trust me that like, I'm here for you, right?
Yeah.
And it's building a relationship, and that's, you know, you can't do that overnight, over time. And I think you saw that with our team this year. Like, if you saw us playing spring training for the first couple of weeks, you kind of would have been like, oh, like, what's going on here, you know? But then you could see guys start buying in and buying in and buying in and buying in, and I get it, right? As a baseball player, or anything, right, in life, like, you've gotten a certain spot to a certain place, doing it your way, right? So you're confident in that.
Oh yeah.
And when someone tells you like, hey, look, that's great, but like, hey, you should try this. You're like, why would I try that? I've already been doing this. Right? Because people have experience, they have wisdom. They're like, look, I understand what you're saying, but like, once you get to this point, these are things that are gonna come up. So for me, that was the biggest adjustment. It's like, how do I convey these messages to these guys without having prior relationships, And remember, sprint training, once it starts, your mind's already going. You're already going. You're already in that mode of this, and you're trying to provide, you're trying to make a team, arbitration, free agency. Like, there are so many things going on. And my message to these guys, like, listen, I've been through all the stuff you guys have been through, you know, families, friends, and like we talked about handling all these different situations.
Yep.
Like, let me help you, right? Let me help you. And in life, you know, that's the hardest thing that we all go through, right? It's like accepting help, right? We want no.
I can do it on my own. Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing. Once we learn to accept help in life, it's like amazing, right? Like my first year coaching, like I don't know everything. I don't know it all, right? It's my first year. But I'm not going to act like, oh, yeah, you know, but I'll accept, like, hey, if anyone that has anything to say, please bring it to me. I want to get better. I want to learn. I want to keep growing, you know, like I'm not a finished product. And that's the exciting thing for me coaching is like, man, we made it through the first year. We were able to make the playoffs, you know, and saw so many exciting things, got to learn from so many great people and Skip and our bench coach, Luis Urrieta, our hitting coaches, Brant Brown, Jason Hart, John Mabry, like the pitching coach. I got to learn so much from all these guys, Jody Reed. I got to learn so much, and I'm like, man, once the season finishes, you're kind of like, oh, wow. It kind of slows down and like, all right, now I know next year I want to get better at this. I personally am going to get better at this. This is what I'm going to do better with all these things. And like, it makes it a lot easier now in the off season where like I can call Brian De La Cruz on the phone and be like, hey, what's going on? How are we looking? What are you working on? Yep. You know, where like before, I couldn't do those type of things, right? So that's what excites me with all this and just learning more and just getting into it. But, you know, the coaching, it's a grind. You know, it's a grind where, you know, and I knew it was going to be a grind, but, you know, it was definitely interesting. You know, my kids are in school. Yep. So I would like, you know, let's say it was we'd have a night game on, let's say a Thursday night game, you know, I don't get home till 12 o'clock and you got adrenaline going on. Yep. And then it's a new series. So you have to do scouting reports on the team. So I'd get up at 4:30 and, you know, knock out scouting reports till 7, you know, get the kids ready, take them to school. Then it's like 9, you know, try to get breakfast with my wife or like hang out with her for a little bit and then like finish scouting reports and then get to the field by 12, you know? So like it was just nonstop. And then the way the new rules are with baseball, how you have to play every single team, it wasn't like before where like you're playing the same teams all the time. So once you do a scouting report, you're good. Like,
you're good.
You could do stuff, you could work for a week and then be chilling for 3 weeks. Where you review a couple of things, but it's not too much. But we literally were playing a new team for 4 months straight. So it was just nonstop. Like it was definitely interesting. And
good thing you learned the computer, bro.
And that's what like everything happens, right? Like you know, I learned how to use Excel. So now I'm doing that. I'm writing emails and I'm uploading things and sharing documents. And like I remember it was funny. I had a tutor here my first semester, and I had to write something. And I'm on my computer, and I have the article, and then I have the Word document, and I'm clicking one and clicking the other, clicking one, and she looked at me and she's like, "What are you doing?" She's like, you don't know how to put things together. I was like, no. Like we talked about, I go, hey, I don't know anything. I don't know how to do any of this stuff. Yeah. That's why I'm here with you. But teach me. That's fine. But don't make fun of me for not knowing this. You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna take that.
Yeah, no, that's
like,
not
you
cool.
know what I mean? She's like, well, what'd you use the computer for? I'm like, I used it to watch iTunes and like I like music videos.
Netflix maybe.
Yeah, like that's what I used it for. Or like I'd upload my hitting videos. Like I'd use like True Media, not any of the other stuff. So that was funny, but she showed me how to split screens and like do all these different things that I use now. So like it's funny how everything comes full circle. With
wow, bro, that's insane. All right, last thing, bro. I promise. I know I'm taking a lot of your time, but talk to me about the ring you have on now, bro. Talk to me how special that ring is right there, bro.
Yeah,
Tell me.
This is my favorite one. You know, obviously I don't. You know, I wore it because we're here, but it's my University of Miami Hall of Fame ring. It's something like I said. Like growing up, my dream was just to be a Kane, right? Like. Obviously, like, yeah, you want to play in the big leagues and all that stuff, but, like, realistically, when you're a kid, I understood the odds and I understood all that, and, like, I was like, I want to be a Kane, you know? So, like, you know, to get honored in 2016, I got put in the UM Hall of Fame was something to me that was, like, I was like, wow, like, I'm in here with, like, the guys that, like, I grew up, like, idolizing, you know? The Ed Reeds, the Sean Taylors, the Ray Lewises, like, all these guys, you know, in the baseball, Pat Burrell, like, you know, all these guys, Charles Johnson, like, these guys are, like, I grew up idolizing all these guys, and, like, I share this common bond with them, right? I'm in the UM Sports Hall of Fame with these guys, so like that's something that for me it's unbelievable. You know, it's something that I take a lot of pride in.
Dude, you're one of the best ever, bro. If not the best, bro, and the best human being too. Because like I wanted to end it with this because I talked to so many people and like we've had this podcast now for almost a year, 50 something episodes, and like your name just keeps getting brought up, and it's not from us, it's just from other people that you've impacted in the game, bro, and like people that have been, damn, bro, I'm gonna tear up, bro, again, it happens every time, but like people that have made it, people that haven't, people of different walks of life, bro, and like You're a special dude, bro.
Thank you, bro.
You're a special dude, bro. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Always.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on, bro. This was awesome.
Of course, bro. Of course.
Yo.
Now you got me to your now, bro.
You're an awesome man, bro. You're an awesome man. I appreciate you.
Thank you, man. Nah, and, you know, with that, it's just like, you know, I've been blessed with, like we talked about throughout this pod today, like with having people that have helped me in my life, and like without those people, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I just try to do the same thing, you know. And I think that's something that, like, you know, we should all do in this world, you know. And you know, I want to give a shout out to, you know, Jimmy Klotz. You know, I met him here when I was a kid. It's super raw, you know, like I was a kid that like interviews were like terrible and like this and that. And he'd call me, hey John, do this. Hey John, do that. And just in life has really like helped guide me with stuff. And you know, we have a wonderful relationship to this day. And like, you know, so those are the things that like I try to do for other people. We're like, you know, like I joke with Jimmy all the time now. Like I'm doing business and I'm doing all these things. I'm like, dude, you created an animal, man. You know, like this is all your fault. You know, So whenever my parents are like, John, you have 1,000 things going on and this and that, and like, then I'm like, Jimmy, I always tell him this is all your fault. You know, you unleashed this animal.
You created this
and
beast.
So like, you know, like I said, like I just try to do the same thing. I try to put out what I've gotten in, and you know, like I said, you never know when you're gonna impact somebody.
You've done it, bro. I appreciate you, dog. This was a movie, bro. This is a movie. That's it. It's over. Thank you, bro.